Talk about a crusher. Yes! Oh!
Are you kidding me?
And gone!
Welcome back to the Schoolyard Sports podcast. I'm Moses Podcast Lane Frank. This is episode 252. We are on location out of the studio for episode 252, and it is March Madness time. I'm ready to pick a perfect bracket. You're ready to get the picks right here. It is Wednesday, the day before the NCAA tournament starts, and let's hop into the picks coming up right now. It is a great time for March Madness. This is our fifth March Madness on the show in the history of Schoolyard Sports, and we always do a giveaway. Gave away a Kemba Walker card one time, gave away an Allen Iverson jersey. We've given away a Paolo Banchero jersey, a Stephen Curry jersey, and this year it is a signed Carmelo Anthony Syracuse jersey. So join the Schoolyard Sports bracket pool if you haven't yet, and let's hop into these great picks I've got coming for you. I've been right before on this show. I've been wrong too. I've picked Texas to win it in years they haven't. I've picked Kansas to win it in a year they have. Last year, I picked Duke, and they didn't win it all. You're going to have to wait and see what I pick this year. We got a great tournament coming up. Starting off with Duke versus Siena in the East region. Now, Siena, their head coach, is a good head coach. He might get hired by Syracuse this week. But Duke, even without Caleb Foster, even without Patrick Ngungba, there is no 16-1 upset here, Duke. Now, Ohio State versus TCU. This is one of those games where it really makes you think, oh my gosh, who's going to win this one? I hate 8-9 games, because they're toss-ups. For Ohio State side of things, Jake Diebler has kind of got things going in year two. After a slow start, they picked up good wins against teams like Purdue. They almost beat Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. John Mobley Jr. has been a great three-point shooter, and Bruce Thornton is the best guard in the Big Ten, potentially. But for TCU, they had a great season, in my opinion. They did. The Big 12 is a battle, and they kind of held their own for some of it. They picked up a win against a few good teams throughout the season, and they kind of, they weren't going to win the Big 12. They weren't. Nobody thought they would. But at their conference play, they played well. They have a win over Florida, a 1 seed. TCU was a really good squad. I think Brock Holt is the anchor of that team, and they get the win. Jamie Dixon moves on to the round of 32. Head coach TCU. Pencil that in, Sharpie that in. TCU into the round of 32. Now, St. John's versus Northern Iowa. Last time Northern Iowa was in the NCAA tournament, they won a game. They made it to the round of 32 after a buzzer beater where they got over to the round of 32 being Texas. Then they played Texas A&M. They were up 12, I think, with a minute left and have one of the biggest chokes of all time. They're not going to get an opportunity to choke because they're not going to win this game. St. John's, the Big East champions, the regular season and the conference tournament, they move on. And Rick Pitino gets to the round 32 for a second straight year with the Johnnies. Kansas versus Cal Baptist. Some people are picking this as an upset. I thought about it. Dominique Daniels is one of the best guards in the country for Cal Baptist, but if you watch his film, he averages 23 points per game. A lot of it is going to the rim. A lot of it is just getting layups, moving shifty, not really shooting, and I think that's going to hurt them here because Kansas is a great shot blocking team. Florida Badunga is one of the best defense players in the country. Kansas, I think, will have no problem shutting down Dominique Daniels of Cal Baptist. A good season for Cal Baptist, but the Jayhawks, they keep on going. No 13-4 upset here. What about Louisville versus South Florida? This game has been the hardest game to pick, in my opinion. I still don't know who I'm going to pick right here as I talk about this. Louisville had great expectations going into the year, and they held up for it for a little bit. Ron Conwell, a transfer from Xavier, has had a good season. Mikael Brown Jr., their 5-star freshman, has had his ups and downs. Isaac McNeely, the big-time transfer for them, hasn't done much. But Pat Kelsey knows what this team has. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Mikael Brown Jr. is confirmed out for this round. Ryan Hodgson, who's done a great job as a South Florida coach, maybe headed to Providence to be their next head coach, has some really good guards, including Wes Ennis, who has more than 100 three-pointers on the year. They've got a guard duo, and they both have 100 threes. It's just going to be a game of who can make more threes. Louisville shoots a ton of threes, 52% of their shots are from behind the arc. South Florida, well, they shoot a lot of threes too, and I think they'll make more in this one. USF into the second round. Michigan State, North Dakota State, MSU comes out strong, and they get a first-round win. UCLA, UCF, another really tough game to pick right here. UCLA is Donovan Dent, who came from New Mexico, who really struggled last year. He really did. I mean, he just kind of it really struggled early in the year. Excuse me. Last year at New Mexico was one of the best guards in the country, and that early in the year this year couldn't get things going. Now, as we go into the Big Ten tournament, he was playing really good basketball. They were beating teams like Illinois. They ended up beating Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. He got injured, but I think he'll be back for this one. Tyler Bilodeau as well. UCLA has really turned around their season, and they get a win over Johnny Dawkins and UCF. UConn versus Furman. There's going to be no 15/2 here. Let's go with UConn. Let's stay in the East region, move over to the second round. Duke versus TCU. TCU and Duke both have wins over Florida. It is going to be a very good game. I think Patrick Gungbo will come back for this one, and that'll be a difference for Duke. Duke over TCU. St. John's versus Kansas, a great game. I mean, you've got two national championship head coaches in Bill Self and Rick Pitino. This is just a match made in heaven, in my opinion, and it's gonna be a good one. But I'm actually gonna go with Kansas. Some people are gonna pick St. John's because St. John's, you want to pick the underdog here, the 5 seed. They're also hot. But Kansas, they battled through Big 12 play. They beat Houston. They lost to Houston. They beat Arizona. They lost to Arizona. I know that a lot of their big wins come at home at Allen Fieldhouse. I don't think that matters here. I'm going to go with Kansas over St. John's. And we'll pick that one right there. Let's go to the next game. USF versus Michigan State. I like USF. I do. I think Michigan State it's a good squad. Jeremy Fears, who I personally have some beef with, bring that up another day, is a good point guard for Michigan State. But I just think USF, Brian Hodgson, he's got to have a plan to shut down these guys. Michigan State won't get the ball to their centers enough. Cohen Carr doesn't have a good game. Jackson Kohler, Carson Cooper, they all struggle. USF has good guard play, and they win this one. South Florida over Michigan State. UCLA versus UConn. It's a tough one. It really is. UConn can go cold sometimes, but I want that championship UConn. Danny Hurley saw his team lose in the round of 32 last year, and he was furious. He's not letting that happen again. UConn over UCLA. Sweet 16 time in this region. Duke versus Kansas. We saw Duke beat Kansas earlier in this year, but that was without Darren Peterson. It was still a close game, though. But I think Duke, better team now than they were in November, and they'll win this one still. Duke over Kansas. South Florida versus UConn. I want a great Elite Eight. I want an Elite Eight between a national champion and a coach who's looking for his first national championship. So I'm going to pick UConn here. Danny Hurley has his national championship and is going to go up against Duke. Danny Hurley has the experience in this kind of game, but John Shire is eager to win that first championship, and he gets one step closer, making his second straight Final Four and winning the East region. Coming up next, we've got the South region. Here we go into the South region, where the Florida Gators are the 1 seed, and they are the reigning national champion. They were in the South region last year as well, and they won it all. They won this region. Are they going to repeat in the South region this year? Let's wait and see. There's some good teams in here. We've got Houston at number 2. We've got Vanderbilt, who always won the SEC. They were in the SEC championship game and just beat Florida. We got Nebraska, a team that started out the year 20-0. It's a good region. Let's all pit to it. First game, Florida versus the winner of Prairie View A&M versus Lehigh, a game taking place tonight. I'm going to go with Florida, though. No 16-1 upset. That's ridiculous. Florida. Clemson versus Iowa, another toss-up game. Two good coaches that I like, Brad Brownwell and Ben McCullum. Ben McCullum won an NCAA tournament last year with Drake over Missouri, and I think he wins another right here. Ben Sturtz is one of the best players in the country. Yes, he plays the whole game, and yes, sometimes teams double team him or triple team him, but that'll just leave his teammates open. They play slow possessions, Iowa. They had a rough Big Ten tournament, losing first round to Ohio State, but I still think they have good wins over teams like Nebraska. They almost beat Michigan. Florida will play Iowa in the round 32. Vanderbilt versus McNeese State. Now, McNeese State is famous because last year they had Oricon. They won an NCAA tournament game against Clemson. It was a great time. Will Wade was their head coach. Will Wade's not there anymore. Will Wade is eliminated as the head coach at North Carolina State. Got lost to Texas last night. He's not going to be here for this game against Vanderbilt. Oricon will be, but it's not going to be enough. I'm going to go with Vandy, Tyler Tanner, Mark Binghamton. Just a great coach. Talk about James Madison. James Madison had Kurt Signetti and Mark Binghamton at one point. And now these guys are great places and better places. Vanderbilt over McNeese State. Nebraska versus Troy. Nobody in this industry, and I've heard this, works harder than Fred Hoiberg. Nobody. He's got a great squad. He's got Bryce Sanford. He's got Rick Must. He's got a son, Sam Hoiberg. But boy, do I like an upset. Trojans win this one. Here's why. Thomas Dowd, who's been injured for a lot of the season, is a great power forward for them. He's going to neutralize guys like Price Sanford and Rink Most. They've also got Victor Valdez, who's just been a great player for them all year. I watched Troy in November play USC, take them a triple overtime, put up over 100 points, and lose at the buzzer. But the Sun Belt champions are going to get a 13-4 upset here. Troy over Nebraska, moving into the round of 32. My first huge domino to fall, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Still looking for their first ever NCAA tournament win, and they won't get it this season. North Carolina versus VCU. A lot of people are taking this upset, but I just don't think so. I think North Carolina's a good team. I think they're a recipe maybe for a disaster, but North Carolina has good guards. They're looking for redemption. They didn't win a game last year in the NCAA tournament. They're without Caleb Wilson, but Seth Trimble's going to do enough for them to get the win over VCU. Illinois versus Penn. Illinois is a great squad, but they don't do well in the NCAA tournament under Brad Underwood. That's a fact. They were a 1 seed in 2021. They lost to Loyola Chicago. They made the Elite Eight against UConn. They lost that one after giving up like a 36-0 run. Penn is a good squad. TJ Power came from Duke, came from Virginia, had 45 points in the Ivy League championship game. But it's not going to be enough to beat Illinois. I really like Keaton Wagler, who could be a top 10, top 5 pick. I like the Ivisic twins. I like David Mirkovic. I like Kylan Boswell, who has NCAA tournament experience. I love Andrei Stojakovic, one of the best shooters in the country. So no upset here. Illinois into the round of 32. St. Mary's versus Texas A&M. Two good coaches. Randy Bennett for St. Mary's. Wasn't able to beat Gonzaga this year in the WCC tournament, but they're still a good squad. They're still a 7 seed. They're an at-large team. Credit to him for the work his program has done over the years to get that reputation. For Bucky McMillan, a guy who came from Samford last year and is now at Texas A&M, well, he brings an exact opposite style of ball that St. Mary's brings. St. Mary's kind of wants to go slow a little bit. Texas A&M, they want to run you over. They call it Bucky ball. They don't shoot layups, they only shoot threes, and they only have dunks. Texas A&M won't ever take a mid-range shot. They have good players, Pop Isaacs, Rylan Griffin, Mackenzie McBacco. They're just more talented, and they're an SEC squad. The SEC is going to do well in the first round. That's a fact. Texas A&M over St. Mary's. Houston versus Idaho. Quick one here. Houston. Now let's go to the top of this region. Florida versus Iowa. Another quick one here. I just like the Gators. I think Bennett Sturts is going to get tired. Just playing 40 minutes every game. It's not going to be sustainable for more than one round. Florida over Iowa. Vanderbilt versus Troy. Now here's my Cinderella for this year. I got the Troy Trojans into the Sweet 16. Isn't it great to have a 13 seed in the Sweet 16? But, I mean, Thomas Dowd is a really good player. So is Victor Valdez. I think Tyler Tanner and Duke Miles struggle. I'm going to go with Troy into the Sweet 16, playing Florida. Now, North Carolina versus Illinois. North Carolina's run ends here. Let's go with Illinois into the Elite Eight. Now, or Sweet 16. Now, Texas A&M versus Houston. This was actually a round 32 game 2 years ago in the West region where Texas A&M hit a buzzer beater to go to overtime, but they had Wade Taylor in that game. They don't have Wade Taylor in this one. Houston over Texas A&M. They'll play Illinois. Florida versus Troy to advance to the Elite Eight. I'm going to go with the Gators, the 1 seed. The Cinderella run ends here for Troy. Florida into the Elite Eight. Illinois versus Houston. It's going to be one of the best games of the tournament. Illinois is uber talented, but Kingston Flemings and Chris Sinak, the freshman duo, play really well here. And Miles Uzan, Manuel Sharp, they bring some experience, as well as Joseph Tugler. So I'm going to go with Houston into my Elite Eight. Now we got a rematch here of the national championship game from last year, Florida versus Houston. Now, if you remember that game, Houston kind of had control for a long time. And then Florida, came in there a little bit, got the lead, and ended up winning that game. Houston is looking for redemption. They are. They're mad at Todd Golden for what he did to them, win national championship. And Kelvin Sampson wants a national championship of his own. He's going to have a chance for it right here because he's going to beat Florida. I just think Xavier Lee isn't good enough of a shooter. They have a great front court. They do, Florida. But Houston does too. Chris Sinak is a 5-star. He's not Juwan Roberts. He's a lot more skilled and talented than Juwan Roberts, even though he doesn't have the experience that Roberts brought for Houston last year. He's going to play great in this game. Kingston Flemings isn't LJ Cryer or Jamal Shedd, but he's going to have a great game. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft, something those guys can't say. Kingston Flemings and Chris Sinak, they are the dynamic duo for Houston in this tournament, and they bring them to the Final Four to have a rematch against Duke. Coming up next, the West region, led by Arizona. Now, the West region, where we have the Arizona Wildcats, the second best team in the country. They'll lead this region off playing Long Island University. And credit to Arizona, the season they've had. Tommy Lloyd, at Arizona has gotten his team to this position many times. Now, they've struggled in this position. They've yet to make a Final Four or an Elite Eight under Lloyd, but this might be the year, and we're going to start off with a good win right here against Long Island University. Zona, the Wildcats, into round 32. Now, another Wildcat, Villanova, taking on Utah State, the Aggies. Utah State is on fire. They just won the Mountain West. Their head coach, Gerard Calhoun, is in big talks for guys, or for teams like Providence, teams like Syracuse. We'll see if he goes to any of those schools, but they're red hot. Villanova, they play in a weak Big East. That's why they're in this tournament, and Kevin Willard doesn't win a tournament game this year. Utah State into the round of 32 over Villanova. Wisconsin versus High Point. I like High Point. I do. They almost won a game last year against Purdue, but I just don't think they win this one. I think Wisconsin is the best backcourt in the country. Nick Boyd and John Blackwell are incredible, and they get a few guys back here. They get Noah Winter back. They've got great guys off the bench. Austin Rapp, who had 6 threes in a row against Michigan. They're one of the hottest teams in the country, even though they're not on a winning streak. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. Wisconsin over High Point. Arkansas versus Hawaii. Arkansas's team on a winning streak, and Darius Acuff is that guy. So Arkansas and John Calipari, no 13-4 here. They move into the round 32. BYU versus Texas. Look, I think BYU's good. I think they have Agent Abansta, who could be one of the best players in the country and could be the story of March and just boost his way to the number 1 pick easily. And he's had a great season. Kevin Young, their head coach, has done a good job picking up the pieces after Richie Saunders left. But the fact of the matter is, they were losing a lot of easy games to Power 5 teams in the Big 12 after Saunders went down. Now, they pieced up a win in the Big 12 tournament, but I just like Texas here. I do. I think they're hot after that win against North Carolina State. Just don't get them in a press situation because they can't break one for the life of them. Sean Miller has experience in this tournament. I'm going to go with Texas, everybody, over BYU. The 11-6, I'm pulling the trigger. Gonzaga versus Kennesaw State. It's potential for an upset because Gonzaga has lost to really bad teams this year, like a Portland, who they lost to, isn't even close to being in this tournament. So it could be an upset, but it's not going to be. I like Gonzaga still. It's the round 32, a 3 seed. Miami versus Missouri. Like I said earlier, I think the SEC is going to do really well in this tournament, and that's like a team Missouri. Missouri has a win over Florida. They've got Mark Mitchell, who was great in his career at Duke and is great at Missouri. They almost beat Kentucky in that SEC tournament. Mark Mitchell dropped 32. They can rebound really well. Dennis Gates is upset because they lost last year in the first round. Missouri gets the win over Miami. And for Miami, it's a building block because Jai Lucas, in his first season as head coach, has got his team to the tournament. But outside of their really top 4 guys, I don't see much on this team. I like Trey Donaldson. I like Sheldon Henderson. I like Malik Reneau. And I like Ernest Uday. But I think Missouri can neutralize all those guys and just go after the rest of the team. So let's go with Missouri over Miami. Missouri struggles with turnovers, but Miami does too. So I'm going to go with Missouri. Purdue versus Queens. Let's go with Purdue. Moving to the top, Arizona versus Utah State. It's going to be a good game. Mountain West champion versus Big 12 champion, but Arizona pulls away late for the win. Wisconsin versus Arkansas. Everybody loves Darius Acuff. Everybody loves John Calipari. One thing Darius Acuff can't do is defend. He's going to have to try to defend not just John Blackwell, but Nick Boyd as well. He's not going to guard either of them. Well, so I'm going to go with Wisconsin because 2 always beats 1. They've got 2 good guards. Arkansas has 1 great guard. I think Wisconsin and Greg Gard, their head coach, win this one over Arkansas. Texas versus Gonzaga. I'm a fan of the upset. I'm a fan of the hot team. Traymon Mark is going to be the difference in this game. Brayden Huff is still going to be out for this one for Gonzaga, and it's going to affect them. So Traymon Mark leads Texas. I think Dalen Swain is a good game too. It'll be a fun one to watch, but Sean Miller gets into the Sweet 16 in his first year at Texas, the first Sweet 16 for Texas since 2023. Missouri versus Purdue. I also like this upset. Look, Missouri is playing in St. Louis. That's their hometown. That's their backyard. Purdue, Indianapolis, it's a little bit further, Missouri wins this one. They've got the home crowd. I like Mark Mitchell. I know it sounds ridiculous. Michigan just lost to Purdue, and Michigan's one of the best teams in the country. But Trey Kaufman-Wren played great in that game. I think Mark Mitchell will play better than Trey Kaufman-Wren. I think their guard play is going to step up. I like Missouri over Purdue. Another big upset right there. A 10 over a 2. So I've got an 11 seed versus a 10 seed in the Sweet 16, and I like to call that March. Arizona versus Wisconsin. Some trivia for you. Back in 2014 and 2015, Arizona played Wisconsin in the Elite Eight, and they lost both times. They're going to get revenge here. They are. Arizona takes down Wisconsin. They're just a great team. I really like Braden Burries. I really like the squad. Arizona over Wisconsin. Texas versus Missouri. Another good game. A 10 versus an 11. Unfortunately for Missouri, this game is not in St. Louis. Let's go with Texas over Missouri. And I like headlines. Arizona, Sean Miller's old team, going up against Texas, where Sean Miller is now. It's made out of a movie. Tommy Lloyd has done a lot of great things in his time in Arizona, and it is time for him to take that next step. I think Arizona dominates Texas. I think Texas' Cinderella run ends here. I have a 10 seed in the Elite Eight. It's a little ridiculous, but I like Cinderellas, like I said. Lakoa Pete, Braden Burries, just a great squad. Krivos, Jaden Bradley, the Big 12 Player of the Year. What more can I say about Arizona? There into my Final Four. We got 3 regions done. We got the Midwest coming up next, led by Michigan. Get ready for that. Now, the Midwest region, led by my Michigan Wolverines. I'm obviously a huge Michigan fan. I'm going to be a Wolverine next year up in Ann Arbor. We've had Dusty May on this podcast, Michigan basketball head coach. They're going to win this game against Howard and maybe even go further in this NCAA tournament. But the 1 seed, Michigan, moves on to the second round. Georgia versus St. Louis. I find it utterly disrespectful that St. Louis is in this tournament because, oh, yes, they had a good few games. They have 28 wins. Yes, they're impressive. No. They're on a terrible streak as of late. They lost to George Mason by 30 a week before the conference tournament. They were down 21 to George Washington in the tournament, ended up winning that game. Then they lost to Dayton, a bad team in my opinion. They didn't get to their conference championship game. They're just not going to win this game at all. Georgia, SEC, you know how I feel about the SEC in this tournament. Go Bulldogs. They move on. They'll play Michigan. That's an easy one for me. That's the lock of the century, Georgia over St. Louis. Texas Tech versus Akron. A lot of people are taking this upset. Texas Tech has injuries. Christian Anderson isn't fully healthy. JT Toppin is out for the season. But I think Christian Anderson is going to come back here. Lawan Watts is going to step up big for Texas Tech. And Grant McCaslin is still one of the best coaches in the game. When you look at Duke, they have 2 losses on their schedule. One in North Carolina in a rivalry game, and one to Texas Tech on a neutral site. They're not going to lose to Akron here, the MAC champions, who barely won the MAC. Texas Tech, it's a lock too. 5 over the 12. Texas Tech Red Raiders into the second round. Alabama versus Hofstra. Hofstra has some really good players, and they've got a really good head coach. Speedy Claxton, former guard for Hofstra, is their head coach. They've got guys that guard like Cruz Davis, who's averaging 20 points per game. They're just a good squad. They have Preston Edmby, another good guard out there. And for Alabama, look, they put up a lot of points. They do. Aiden Holloway was a great guard for them. He's not on this team anymore. Arrested earlier in the week. Off the team, Aiden Holloway. I had this upset before that happened, but LeBaron Philin has too much on his plate. It's been a tumultuous season for Alabama with the Charles Bediako situation. Now this Aiden Holloway situation. It's a match made in heaven. For another 13-4 upset, Hofstra moves into my round of 32. Let's go. Hofstra has already beaten teams like Syracuse, teams like Pitt. They're bound for a bigger upset here, and they get the win over Alabama. Tennessee versus the winner of Miami of Ohio versus SMU. I don't like either of those teams. I do like Tennessee, though. I like Jacoby Gillespie. I like Rick Barnes. And I love Nate Ament because when he goes, they go. Tennessee over Miami of Ohio or SMU. Virginia versus Wright State. Virginia has some good players. They've got guys like Ugana Waku, who had 7 blocks in the ACC championship game. They've got DeRitter. Ryan Odom, their head coach, who used to be the head coach at UMBC when they pulled off the upset against Virginia back in 2018. He's now the head coach at Virginia. So Virginia gets the win over Wright State. Kentucky versus Santa Clara. Santa Clara, in my opinion, is another team that just doesn't need to be in this tournament as an at-large team. The reason they're in there is to boost the resume of St. Mary's and to boost the resume of Gonzaga. But Kentucky is definitely going to win this game. Kentucky has their issues. Kentucky probably isn't the team that could win this game, a first-round game. But they're going up against a team that doesn't deserve to be here. Kentucky over Santa Clara. Iowa State versus Tennessee State. It's an easy one. The 2 seed always wins, at least in this tournament. Iowa State over Tennessee State. Michigan versus Georgia. Another easy one. I think Michigan's size is a big difference. Yaxel Lendeborg, Adai Mara, Marez Johnson, the difference makers for the Wolverines. Texas Tech versus Hofstra. It's going to be a good game. Speedy Claxton is going to get his guys going. He's going to see what Troy does, get into the Sweet 16. He's going to say, guys, we need to do that too. But Grant McCaslin is a great coach, and if Texas Tech can survive the Big 12 without JT Toppin, they can survive a round 32 matchup against Hofstra. They'll move into the Sweet 16 against Michigan. Tennessee versus Virginia. Rick Barnes is still looking to get Tennessee to their first Final Four, but it's not going to happen this year. I think Virginia, they're just a great defending team. Their shot blocking is solid. They're going to box out and block out Nate Ament all game. I think they will. I think they'll shut down Jacoby Gillespie's shooting. It's an easy one for me. 3 seed Virginia advances to the Sweet 16. Play the winner of Kentucky versus Iowa State. Like, it's classic for someone to take Kentucky here. You see, the richness of Kentucky. They're so good all the time. Not under Mark Pope. I don't think Mark Pope gets the win here. I like Milan Momcilovic of Iowa State shooting 50% from three. I like Joshua Jefferson, 17 points per game. Taman Lipsey, a senior guard. Nate Heide. This is a really good team. And TJ Altenberg gets his squad to the Sweet 16 after missing out last year when they lost in the round 32. Michigan versus Texas. I like Michigan. I do. Texas Tech, excuse me. But this is a rematch of the 2019 Sweet 16 when Michigan lost Texas Tech out in Anaheim, Los Angeles. It's obviously very different teams, very different coaches. That was Chris Beard for Texas Tech and John Beilein for Michigan. Grant McCasland and Dusty May are two of the youngest and best head coaches in college basketball. But another thing right here, Christian Anderson just can't get going in this one. He'll be tired after playing most of the round 32 and most of the round of 64 game. For Dusty May's guys, they play 8 guys now after the injury to LJ Kaysen. That's more than enough to beat Texas Tech. Look for a guy like Will Cheddar to have some huge threes in this game off the bench. It'll be close, but I think Michigan Stars show out in this one, and Michigan advances to the Elite Eight. Virginia versus Iowa State. I'm going back and forth in this one, but I like Iowa State. I do. I think TJ Otzelberger right now is a more experienced coach in these situations than Ryan Odom, who will be a great head coach for Virginia and probably could get a national championship back there someday. But let's go with Iowa State over Virginia. I like Milan Momcilovic to go great in this game. Michigan versus Iowa State. It's a good one. It's a Midwest bad one. We're in the Midwest region. It's a movie made in heaven. This game's going to be in Chicago. Both of these fans are going to travel well. Michigan fans in Ann Arbor, on the East Coast, wherever they might be. And then for the Iowa State fans out in Ames, they can drive here, they can fly here, they can do whatever they want. It's not going to be enough. Michigan is going to play great in this one. I think Roddy Gale, a guy who had a great round 32 game last year, and a guy who has stepped up his defensive as of late, is going to play well. Nimari Burnett, a three-point shooter, who I should have mentioned, used to play for Texas Tech. He'll play great in this one against Iowa State. And Yaxel Lendeborg does enough. He'll be fully healthy by this game after getting a little high ankle sprain or low ankle sprain against Purdue. And Michigan makes the Final Four. So my Final Four is set. I've got 3 1 seeds and I've got 1 2 seed. I've got a Duke-Houston rematch. That's a match made in heaven. The third time in the past 3 years we're getting that matchup in the NCAA tournament. I've got Arizona versus Michigan, and we're going to pick it all coming up next. The Final Four is here. We're out in Indianapolis, and we've got the 3 1 seeds and the 1 2 seed. But Houston is a great team. That's why they're in this Final Four. Duke is going to have a tough ride to get there through the East region, and they're going to get their rematch against Houston. This is a storied matchup. Kelvin Sampson versus John Shire have had their battles. 2 years ago, Houston was a 1 seed, and they lost to a 3 seed Duke out in Dallas. I was there for that game. Last year, Houston played Duke in the Final Four, and they were down and out the whole game. They came back to win it in the last minute. That game was in San Antonio. And I can guarantee you, if this game happens, I will be there in the stands for Duke versus Houston. So who's going to win it? Who's going to win the third battle and come away with the crown? It's a story made in heaven. I think Duke gets their revenge. I do. I think Cam Boozer is just going to be a good matchup for Chris Sinak. I think Caleb Foster can even come back in this one. Caden Boozer plays well too. Kingston Flemings ends his college career on a tough note. Chris Sinak as well. Houston went big this year. They got 2 5-star freshmen, and it paid off, but not enough to win them a national championship. Will Kelvin Sampson retire after this year? I don't know, but John Shire comes even closer to winning his first national championship by getting to his first ever title game. Now, Arizona versus Michigan, another great game. Tommy Lloyd is an awesome head coach, and so is Dusty May for Michigan. Arizona, I think, has been one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country all year, because they only have 2 losses, and that was in the same week. It was. I mean, it's ridiculous. Think about it, that Arizona fell number 2 just by having one bad week. A bad loss on the road, Allen Fieldhouse to Kansas, that was close. And then even worse loss, Texas Tech, that was also on the road. And Koa Pete was out for both those games. So you can make an excuse that, Arizona fully healthy is still the best team in the country. But I think for Michigan, it's a tough matchup for them because Krivos has good size. A few other guys like Koa Pete have good size. I think Marez Johnson wins the matchup against Koa Pete. I think Yaxel Lendeborg will be unguardable in this one. And the Michigan Wolverines will advance to the national championship where we get a rematch of Duke versus Michigan. Very rare where we get a matchup like this after seeing the matchup earlier in the season. And I think when we saw that Duke-Michigan game earlier in the year, everybody walked away saying, this is going to be a national championship. These are the 2 best teams in the country. And we hope we get this game again. And we do. In Indianapolis this time. Last time, Michigan kind of just I think, went through the motions in that game and kind of thought that the win would just come. It would come eventually, and they'd get the win. They were off a big high after their win against Purdue at Mackey Arena earlier in the week. Duke was looking to get the number one team, the number one ranking. They always had the thing, Duke is never the underdog. We're going to win this one. And Duke will be the favorite here because these are the two best teams in the country, but Duke is number one right now. But at the end of the day, this is the closest chance I'll ever get to pick the Michigan Wolverines in the Final Four national championship to win it all. So Michigan wins it all. Go Blue! And that closes out our 2025-2026 college basketball season with my 2026 bracket. It's our 5th time doing the bracket on the show, and I'm going to get it right for the 2nd time this year with the Michigan Wolverines. Go Blue! Thank you for tuning in. Follow Schoolyard Sports on Instagram at Schoolyard Sports. Follow Schoolyard Sports on X at Schoolyard Sport. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review for the best sports content in the world. This is March, and we'll be back next week to break down the picks. Episode 253 next week. Go Blue and go March.